So the first thing is about to understand about the databases. So when we talk about the databases, so we have a lot of databases which are available in the market. So we have Oracle database, we have a DB2, we have Teradata, we have different other databases like Sybase and we have even some in-memory databases now which are slowly kicking up. So like Netizen, Greenplan, HANA, Einstein, all those things. So these are all the relational database management system. These are all the relational database which stores the data in the form of tables. So in order to communicate with all these databases, we need a language that is nothing but your SQL. So the structured query language. So using the SQL, we'll communicate with all the databases. Using the SQL, we'll read the data from database, we'll populate the data into the databases. At the same time, we'll modify the data. All those things can be done by using your SQL. That is your structured query language. And prerequisites to understand about the data warehouse and the Informatica is about the SQL. So if you have a little bit of SQL background and what is an SQL and how can we write the select queries and what are the different DML statements, all these simple things. So and also about how to create the tables in the databases, all these kind of knowledge. So it would be a good plus for an Informatica developer. And since we are going to do all these kind of activities when you join in your project, so you're going to do all of these things in your project. So having an SQL knowledge and the knowledge about the databases would be a real plus as an Informatica developer. So we'll talk about what is a data warehouse, and the people keep saying about the data warehouse. So what is actually the real data warehouse is all about? So the data warehouse, when we talk about the data warehouse, is nothing but the database. So it's nothing but the database where we have the data being stored, and the data within the data warehouse is used for analysis purpose. So what kind of analysis will be carried out, or what kind of analysis will be carried out on the data warehouse is that, so in any business, like whenever they want to assess their business, like in terms of productivity, in terms of quality, in terms of revenue, in terms of profit. So all these kind of analysis, whenever you want to carry out, you need a data warehouse to be there, which can actually helps you to improve your business, So now the data warehouse in the simple terms, it's nothing but the collection of data from the transactional systems, and then storing in the centralized place. So whenever centralized place in the form of tables. So whenever we talk about the transactional systems, so in the general world, the transactional systems are called as a OLTP. In the OLTP, we call them in the short form, we call them using a OLTP system. So that is about your online transaction processing system. So online transaction processing system, we have various examples which we call it as an online transaction processing system. Best examples would be your ATM withdrawal system, and what you talk about the e-commerce applications like your Amazon and eBay. All these things are also your e-commerce application, transaction-oriented application. So all these applications are generally used for daily operations. So in order to run your banks, run for a daily operation, so these transactional systems have been used. So here we'll have frequent transactions will be happening. A transaction is nothing but a group of DML statements. A group of DML statements is called as a transaction. So when you talk about the eBay or Amazon, frequently the customers will be booking the orders, cancelling the orders, modifying the orders, and all these things will be happening. So that's nothing but you are performing some transaction. So this is called as a transaction-oriented applications. So when we are going to build the data warehouse, so we are going to collect the data from different OLTP systems. We are going to collect the data from different OLTP systems and then store it into a centralized place. So let's say we have different OLTP systems which are used for your daily operations. So assume that you're actually working for a bank client and your bank has different OLTP systems which are developed for different regions. I have one OLTP system which I have actually developed for APAC region, and I have an OLTP system which is developed for US region, and I have one OLTP system which is developed for US region, and I have one OLTP which is actually developed for Europe. So assume that your data is being distributed across the different OLTP applications. Suppose, let's say, OLTP APAC system is being developed in the SQL Server database, and the OLTP US, so it's being developed in SAP system to handle all the operations. They have developed in SAP system. And now we have another thing in the Europe. So assume that they have developed in the mainframes with the DB2 they have developed it. So now my OLTP data is actually distributed across the different systems. My OLTP data is being distributed across the different systems. So we are talking about the data warehouse, and the data warehouse is used for analysis. And we are understanding that we are integrating the data from all these OLTP systems into a centralized place, so called as a data warehouse. So why are we integrating the data here? Why are we integrating the data, and why can't we use these OLTP systems itself for analysis? Why can't we analyze the data from OLTP systems? Since the data is distributed across the many applications, and we don't have a correct technology in the today's market which can actually analyze the data by bringing the data from all these three applications at a time. We don't have a technology available which can actually communicate with all these three different heterogeneous systems and then can generate a report. So we don't have such kind of a technology, and this is the main reason that why we can't use OLTP system for analysis. And also we have other reasons, like OLTP systems does not store the historical data. So when we go to OLTP system, you will not find no history. Historical data will not be there in the OLTP systems. So historical data plays a major role in analysis. So the historical data is not available, and your OLTP systems are also normalized in nature. Normalized means data is being distributed across a more number of tables. Data is being distributed across a more number of tables. So to analyze the data from large number of tables is a complex approach, is a complex process. So that's why we are not using this OLTP system for analysis. Since the OLTP systems are not suitable for analysis purpose, and we are integrating the data from all these OLTP heterogeneous systems into a centralized place called as a data warehouse. So when we talk about the data warehouse, so when you choose a data warehouse, you can choose a data warehouse as an Oracle database, or you can choose a data warehouse as a Teradata. Any RDBMS can be your data warehouse. Any RDBMS can be your data warehouse. Mostly you come across data warehouses in terms of Teradata, Oracle, DB2, and these technologies, these databases. So the process of integrating the data from all these OLTP applications into a centralized place, so called as your data warehouse, is called as an ETL process. So ETL stands for extract, transform, and then load. So what is the meaning of extraction? What is the meaning of transformation? What is the meaning of transformation? And what is the meaning of load? So extraction is nothing but the reading of the data. So you read the data. So how do you read the data from the databases? So by using a select query. So you read the data by using the select queries, and you transform the data. So transforming of the data is nothing but the modifying of the data. So modify the data from one form to the other form, and apply the business rules, business validations, data validations. All these things will be done in the transformation. So the next thing is about the load. So the load is nothing but the inserting again into the data into the tables, or populating the data into the flat files. So ETL stands for extract, transform, and then the load. Extract, transform, and then the load. So ETL process. So we have a lot of ETL tools which are available in the market, and which helps you to integrate the data from all these OLTP applications. So when we talk about the different ETL tools which are available, So when we talk about the different ETL tools, so we have Informatica Power Center, which is a majorly used tool among all the ETL tools. So Informatica Power Center 9.5 is there in the market, and this is from Informatica Corporation. We have a data stage which is from IBM. We have a data stage which is from IBM, and we have a Ab Initio which is from Ab Initio Corporation, and we also have a different other tools from the Oracle Warehouse Builder, ODI, Oracle Data Integrator, all these different tools which are available in the ETL. Now you have integrated the data from all your heterogeneous OLTP applications into a data warehouse, and we understand that the data warehousing data is being analyzed. So how are you going to analyze the data? So the analyzation of the data will happen with the help of a reporting tools. So how do you analyze the data? So the reports will be generated by reading the data from your data warehouse, and the reports will be generated in the form of pie charts, bar graphs, and all those things. So the reports will be generated by using your data warehouse, So the process of generating the reports is called as a BI, business intelligence process. So it's called as a BI tools. And reports will be generated in the form of a tabular format, and you can also generate them in the pie charts, bar graph, and in a different formats we can generate the reports. And we have so many reporting tools which are available, and all the reporting tools are also called as OLAP tools. So we have a different BI tools or the different OLAP tools which are available, and among them we have OBIE, Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition. We have Cognos, which is from IBM, and we have MicroStrategy, that is also one of the HOLAP tool. And all these different OLAP tools will read the data from the data warehouse and then generate the reports for your data business users, business users to analyze the data. So the data warehouse is a combination of ETL process and then the BI process, ETL plus the BI process. So in any data warehousing project, you'll come across the two roles. One is the ETL developer, another is a BI developer. That is a report developer who generates the reports from this ETL and then the BI. So now in this course, we are mostly concentrating on the ETL process, how we are going to integrate the data from your OLTP applications into a data warehouse. So that's where we are going to concentrate. And the BI is another separate process which will be used to generate the reports. So we will not be concentrating much on the BI, how we generate the reports by using any of these tools. And in this, we are going to see, in this course, we are going to see how the Informatica Power Center will be used to integrate the data, and we are going to discuss about the futures of Informatica Power Center and how the Informatica Power Center will be used. So that's a simple brief about the basics about the data warehouse and why we are actually going for a data warehouse and what is the use of it. So this data warehouse is not a technology. We have so many technology tools which are available. We have ETL tools, we have a business intelligence tools which are available. Data warehouse is just a theory proposed by the scientist called as Ralph Kimball. We call him as a father of data warehouse. Now, I'm going to discuss about the Informatica Power Center, how the Informatica Power Center will be used to integrate the data, and what are the different tools which are available in Informatica Power Center. That we will see that. So, to understand, before actually stepping into this, I would like to hear if you have any questions so far what we have discussed. You can quickly ping me, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them and then move forward with the Informatica Power Center different tools.
Karthik, Harish here.
Yeah, Harish.
Yeah, so I have a general question, so not related to what you just discussed. I always wanted to know, given a scenario wherein you're going to extract the data, so how would you decide whether you should be using an ETL tool or it's better to go for PLC? So what makes you decide that it's better to go for ETL? So I know that it has got its own advantages, but are there any situations wherein it's better to go for PLC coding rather than using an ETL tool?
It's actually the PLSQL is something which is a limited, right? So your PLSQL can understand only the Oracle database. Suppose let's say I have a OLTP systems, something the legacy systems like your mainframes and SAP, where your PLSQL cannot extract the data from SAP, or your PLSQL neither extract the data from your mainframe system. So here ETL tools will be an advantage to extract the data from. If you have OLTP systems which are distributed only on the Oracle database, so where my PLSQL easily can extract the data and I can easily process the data from my OLTP systems into my Oracle warehouse. So in that case, your PLSQL will become handy. So without purchasing a license, separate ETL license, you can actually perform all the things using a PLSQL itself. But if I have other heterogeneous sources where I can't do that, that is one.
So if I'm supposed to pull out data from different schemas within Oracle itself, so are there any reasons why I should be going for ETL? So I understand that if it's heterogeneous, you go for ETL tool, but in my current project itself, we are having lots of schemas from which we are supposed to retrieve the data and massage it. In this case, we have this $1,000,000 question of deciding as to go for an ETL tool or do everything using PLC code. So what do you think should be the deciding factors for this is not heterogeneous. This is all from the same, from Oracle database, but from different schemas.
Okay, so but different schemas within the same database, or you have different databases altogether here?
Both. Different schemas from one database, and there are different databases also. Both.
Okay. So it's actually, you have to Informatica future in mind if you're actually going with the ETL tool. In later, if you have to integrate the data from any kind of heterogeneous system also, you need not to actually depend upon Oracle again and then purchase a license. That is one point that where you can actually get a benefit from the ETL tool. And also, I'm not very sure how in the real time in terms of performance when you're actually extracting the data over the remote network and then processing the data will be a faster approach when you're using it. So suppose let's say you have to extract the data from remote databases and then process the data using your PLSQL, where your PLSQL code is residing in the data warehouse and it is extracting it. And we have to really check the performance, and I feel that here ETL can give you a better advantage in terms of performance rather than going for PLSQL where you have to write so many logics and all those things. And whereas your Informatica Power Center will give you a pre-built features where you can actually make use of them to aggregate the data or integrating the data becomes very easier approach rather than you doing the entire thing. And it also takes a very less amount of time. Suppose let's say you are actually writing a complex logics in the PLSQL, probably the estimation period and the development period for your PLSQLs would be higher compared to Informatica Power Center development. Which
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Yeah. So next thing is, any other questions, please? If you have, please go ahead.
Karthik, in terms of when you're developing an ETL, so I understand that you're going to take care of all the transformations, recovery logic, and all that within an ETL tool. But would you be giving any ETL guidelines per se, like something like before you join something, we need to use sort transformation, and before we're going to get the data from heterogeneous sources, we are supposed to stage it, or are we supposed to put it into a file system, something like that? Do you have any general ETL guidelines that you'll go through, or it's going to be plain Informatica?
No, we actually have designed our course in such a way which actually touches all the real-time scenarios, and then we'll go over it. So we'll take one example and then drive our ETL sessions by covering all the ETL features. I'll just show you what kind of hands-on labs we have, and I'll show you. Just give me a moment, and then once we go, we will do that. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So to move forward again, Informatica Power Center is something that a very majorly used ETL tool. Majorly used an ETL tool which follows the client-server architecture, and we have a Power Center client from Informatica, and we have a Power Center server. So as a developer, we'll be having a Power Center clients which will be installed in our system, and we'll be communicating with Power Center server which will be installed in somewhere in the client place. So all the developers will have all these Power Center client tools which are installed. So we have 4 Power Center client tools, so which are used. So the first thing is about the designer, Power Center designer, and the next thing is about the workflow manager, Power Center workflow manager, and you have a Power Center workflow monitor, and which is also Power Center workflow monitor. And then the other thing is your Power Center repository manager. So these are all the 4 client tools which are used for integration of data: Power Center Designer, Power Center Workflow Manager, Power Center Workflow Monitor, and then the Power Center Repository Manager. So how does your Power Center client tools will communicate with the server, and how we will see the architecture? So let's take a look at the Power Center architecture, how it looks, and then see this. So let's quickly take a look at the architecture, how it looks. And we have different Power Center client tools which are installed here, and I have to communicate with the Power Center server. So your Power Center client tools will communicate with the server with the help of a TCP/IP. So if both are present in the same LAN, it will use as a TCP, and if it is present in the wide area network over the internet, it will communicate to this, that is your TCP/IP. So using the different network protocols, it will communicate with the server. And your Informatica server, whatever we are talking about, the Informatica Power Center server is not an independent one. It has to be actually integrated with one repository database. So what is a repository database? So before you install the Power Center server, first you need to install one database. So either it can be an Oracle database, or it can be a DB2 database, or it can be a SQL Server database. So you need to install the database, which is a repository database, which we call it as a repository database. So what is the necessity of installing what is the role of database here? What is the role of database? This is not your source database, this is not your target database, but you still need a database to be available for Informatica. So what is the use of it? So what is the use is that this repository database is nothing which will consist of metadata tables. So it is like your data dictionary tables, what is available in the database, and this repository database will help you to store all your Informatica related programs. So whenever you see in your PLSQL or whenever you see in your other languages, whenever you compile the programs or anything, it gets saved onto your hard disk, and in case of a PLSQL, it gets saved onto your data dictionaries. And Informatica also comes up with the same concept. So whenever you install Informatica server and then configure it, it will create 710 metadata tables, which helps you to store all your ETL programs. So when I say ETL programs are called as mappings, sessions, and then the workflows. All your ETL programs will get saved onto your repository database. So whenever I design a program by using a designer, or a workflow manager or a monitor or the repository manager, so these are all the 4 client tools. So whenever I create a program using a designer tool, or whenever I create a mapping, so this request will be sent to the server. In the server, there will be a service called as a repository service. We have a service called as a repository service, which helps you to save the programs to the repository database. So once you create the program, then you have to execute the program. So there is another type of a service called as a integration service. We call it as an integration service. Integration service will understand the instructions of your program, will understand the instructions of your mapping, and then it will move the data from source database to the target database. So your integration service performs the ETL process here by understanding the instructions. Now I have a table which is available in SAP system. Assume that I have a table which is available in SAP, and I have another table which is available in the Oracle. I have a table which is available in the Oracle database. This is my warehouse. This is my data warehouse. Now I have created a sample program. I have created a sample program which extracts the data from employee table which is available in SAP. I have an employee table which is available in SAP, and then move the data into another table called as a ODS underscore employee. ODS underscore employee, which is available in my warehouse or any table. So you have created a program to move the data from employee table to the ODS underscore employee. So that you have created, and your integration service will execute your program with the help of sessions and workflows which will be created by using the workflow manager. So it will perform the ETL process. What does your integration service does? Integration service will extract the data from employee table and then transform the data within the Informatica memory or Informatica server memory or a cache. It will transform the data within the memory, and then it will load the data into the target. So when we say extraction, this will read the data. So your integration service will read the data from database and transform the data and then load it into the database. So that's nothing but inserting of the data. Now here your SAP system is different, and you have Oracle database is different. How does your Informatica will communicate with legacy systems like SAP, and how does your Informatica will communicate with databases like Oracle and all? So we'll have a separate plugins where Informatica provides in the form of Power Exchange plugins. So it will use the plugin to communicate with the SAP legacy systems like SAP and mainframes. Suppose if you have an Oracle database or SQL Server database, it uses the ODBC drivers. It uses the ODBC drivers. ODBC is nothing but the Open Database Connectivity. It's just like your Java and your .NET. Whenever you want to connect to the database, you use the JDBC drivers and ODBC drivers. So the same way, if server has to communicate with the database, it will communicate with the databases by using the ODBC drivers. So these ODBC drivers are the platform dependent drivers. So for Windows, for different databases, we'll have a different drivers which will be available to communicate with the database. So your Informatica will communicate with the databases, either it is a source database or a target database or the repository database. So it communicates by using a ODBC drivers. So how the end-to-end flow appears when we talk about the Informatica Power Center, how the end-to-end flow will appear, and how can we actually make use of the different client tools which are available. So overall, as a Power Center developer, you will have only the clients which are installed, and the server will be installed somewhere in your client machine, and you'll be communicating with it. So Informatica is not a standalone product. It has to be integrated with one of these databases to store all its Informatica programs, all your Informatica programs. So it's not an independent tool which can work on its own. So in order to store it, we need a database to be available. So let's take a look at what is the use of each and every tool, and I'll show you how the Power Center client tools will look like. So we have a designer, workflow manager, and workflow monitor. So let me just log into my server which I have available in my remote box. Okay. So I have so assume that I have a client in my machine, but it's okay. I have a client and server both on this server, and I'm going to connect to this. So let's see whether I can. So I'm connecting to the server. I'll show you some simple sample program. How can we actually migrate the data from one database to the other database? So this is a Power Center Designer which I have actually logged in. And I have various mappings which I have already developed it. So I'm taking a sample mapping. How does the mapping looks like? and I'll show you what is the use of a designer. What is the use of a designer? So using the designer, so whenever you start building the ETL program, first thing is that you need to identify what is the source, what is the source table or what is the source, and then similarly what is a target. So first you need to identify what is the source and what is a target. So in order to create the source definition, in order to identify the target definition, in order to create the different transformations and all these things, we need a designer. So I just stop here, 1 second. So using the designer, what we'll do, we'll create the source definitions, source definition of your source table definition or your source definition. And when we talk about the source, your source can be anything. It can be a relational table or it can be a flat file. You can also read the data from XML file, all these things. You can read the data from all these things. And at the same time, using the designer, you'll also create the target definition. How does your Informatica understands that you have to move the data from source to the target? So first you need to define the source and then you need to define the target. So you can do it from any source to any target. You don't have any restriction, all are compatible. So any XML file or an SAP system or any kind of a system which you can call it. Now here if you see, I have a mapping. So sorry, it's struck here. 1 second, just give me a moment. Okay, so and also it is very slow, it's not responding probably for some reason. And you're also going to create the mappings by using the designer. You're also going to create the mappings by using the designer. So what is a mapping? A mapping is nothing but the Informatica object which represents the data flow from source to the target. So this will tell you which column from the source should be populated into which column in the target, So which represents the data flow from source to target, that is called as a mapping. That is called as the mapping, and that is how the mapping looks. So it's still stuck here. Okay, let me just open another. So I'll show you now a sample mapping, how a sample mapping looks. So the same example I'll show you how employee data will be moved from the source database to the target database or the source table to the target table. We'll just see that. So now I'm logging into the repository. This is a repository. Repository is which contains which retrieves the data, all the data, whatever we have created from the repository database. This is a repository service which is helping you to save the programs at the same time to retrieve the programs. So let's take a look at the sample mapping. So which is moving the data from employee table to the ODS underscore employee table. So we'll have various options which will be available in the mapping. So called as a source analyzer. This is used to create the source definition, and the target designer is used to create the target definition. And we have even some advanced things which we'll be discussing through the course. And then the next thing is about the mapping designer. Here in the mapping designer tab, you will see you will create the mappings, which is a data flow from source to the target. So mapping is something that which will contain the sources, targets, and the set of transformations we have to do. It is a complete ETL flow, which will read the data, transform the data, and then load it. It's just a program and then the data flow. We are not still executing any program as such. Now, if you see, it is reading the data from employee table, which is an Oracle source. It shows here, which is an Oracle source, and it is transforming the data. So we have a transformation called as an expression transformation, which is used to transform the data. So what transformation logic we have implemented here? So if you see, we have different columns which are available in the employee table, which we have a first name, last name, and all those things. But you have only the name column which is present, name column which is present in the employee ODS underscore employee table. So I have to transform the data in such a way before I load the data into the target table, I need to truncate I need to concatenate the first name and last name and then load it. So that's why I'm using a transformation, and then I'm transforming the data and then loading it to a respective columns in the target. Respective columns such as your employee ID, name, date hired, and then the type code. So likewise, we are loading the data, we are reading the data from employee table and then loading the data into ODS underscore employee. ODS underscore employee table. So this represents the data flow. Mapping is nothing but which represents a data flow from source to target and how it is getting transformed. And by using the workflow manager, we are going to execute the programs. So workflow manager will give you a luxury of executing the programs, scheduling of the programs, and you can also do a lot of things here. So which will be discussing in the advanced level things. So I have a
Karthik, quick question. So this workflow manager is used for running the mapping that we just created, right? So if you're going to install this in production, how would we call this workflow?
It's you want to actually automate the scheduling process.
Yeah. Is this something that we can call from Autosys?
Yes, we can call it that. That's by using there is a command called as a PMCMD command, and you can actually use that third-party, PMCMD command and invoke the workflow. This is when you are actually running the workflow from the UI, we can run it. So in the background, Informatica is nothing but it is firing a PMCMD command to invoke the workflow or kickstart the job. And using the PMCMD, you can schedule it from Autosys, and then that PMCMD command will be fired to your Informatica server automatically, which starts the job. You can schedule it. You can integrate all these workflows using third-party tools like DAC. Also, you can use Control M, Autosys. You can execute the workflows from cron tab also from Unix. You can use your Windows batch scheduler. Anything you can do.
Sounds good.
Okay. So now I have a workflow which is actually designed to invoke my mapping or execute my mapping, whatever I have created. So this workflow and session are invoking my mapping. So which is my invoking my mapping, which is I've just shown you. So whenever you execute a workflow, and now you need to identify whether your program is actually succeeded or failed or all those things, everything can be identified from the workflow monitor. So the workflow monitor will give you whether your program is succeeded or it is failed, how many number of rows it has extracted, how many number of rows are failed, how many source success rows, target success rows, everything can be found from the workflow monitor. So when you see, I have a sample workflow which is already succeeded here, which is generating an XML file. So if you see, it is reading the data from my source table and then it is writing the data. So if you look at you can also see how many source success rows are there, how many target success rows and all those things. So if you go to the task details, here it will tell you how many rows are failed, how many rows are succeeded, and what is the mapping it is invoking. See here, source success rows are 17, source failed rows are 0, target success rows are 17, failed rows are 0, total transformation errors are 0, and it will give you a lot of other options like to see how it has executed, what query it has used. All those things also you can find it from the session log. This is a log file. It's a process-oriented instructions how the Informatica is actually process the data. So the high-level process steps will be kept in the session log. From the session log, you can easily identify what query it has used and how it has processed the data and all those things. See here, this is the query which has generated by Informatica to read the data from my source table. My source table is a SCD input, and this is the query which is fired by Informatica. So whenever you create a mapping definition and all those things, Informatica can generate its own queries according to the database source. If I am using an Oracle source, it will generate a query which is compatible with Oracle source and then retrieve the data. Most of the time it uses an ANSI SQL to retrieve the data from the different databases. So likewise, you use different client tools in integrating the data. And also, what is the use of this repository manager? This repository manager is more like a administration tool where which is used to migrate the code from one repository to the other repository. Let's say I have developed all the programs, everything in my dev repository, and I have to move those into a UAT repository or a production repository. So this repository manager will help you to move the code from one repository to other repository. So you can move the code by folder to folder, and you can move the code by individual program, and you can also move the code by deployment groups. These are all something advanced, and which we can do that from one repository to other repository. This is more like used by the Informatica administrators for migrating the code. So as a programmer, you might also involve in some cases to migrate the code from one repository to other repository. So likewise, these 4 client tools will be majorly used in the Informatica Power Center to integrate the data. So this is just I've just given you an introduction about these client tools and how we actually use these client tools in the real time. And when it comes to the course content, like what we are going to cover, so we actually drive our course based upon the simple case study, and we have around total 36 hands-on labs which will be shared it with you and along with the installation. And we are going to implement this case study by going through different hands-on lab. So how we are going to do is, we are going to create an OLTP environment, and then from that OLTP environment we'll start extracting the data and then populate it to the C. So we are going to, like the other trainings what they provide, so they actually use an employee table and then do it. So we'll try to match as close as the real-time, how the real-time tables will be. So we have designed our tables to use all the real-time tables, your order management tables, which we have in the OLTP system. And by using Informatica, first we'll stage the data into a ODS area, and then from ODS area we'll load it into a dimension tables and the fact tables. This is a warehouse, and these tables will be used to these tables will be used for reporting. And by touching all the features, we have all the features in Informatica. We have designed all our hands-on labs, close to 36 hands-on labs, which helps you to understand data from different source files and also we have examples to show you how to read the data from XML files and all those things. Everything will be here. Everything are here, and apart from this, a few administration level tasks also will be showing you, like how to create the repository, how to create the integration service, and how to create the different users in the repository, and how can you migrate the code from one repository to the other repository, and what are the different things that you see. Everything will be discussed. So the course will be taking around 30 to 35 hours on a day if you are actually covering 1 to 1.5 hours. So it will be close to taking 4 weeks of time to cover complete things from end-to-end flow to give you. And when we start with it, first we'll discuss about, I see that there are a lot of people who have come already from the data warehousing background, but it's our duty that to cover everything. So now we'll cover about the data warehouse, and we'll also cover about the dimension modeling. In the dimension modeling, we'll talk about the star schema, snowflake schema, and everything. Star schema, snowflake schema, all these things will be discussed. And then we'll go to the actual Informatica Power Center. So first 2 to 3 classes, we will talk about the data warehousing, data modeling concepts, and what is the advantages of the data warehouse, what is the architecture of the data warehouse, what kind of architecture you come across. All these things will be discussed in the first few classes. Then we'll go with the Informatica Power Center. So the people who are, so since it's good that if you brush up your skills on the SQL, and which will be helpful to you to understand more things on the Informatica. Because as an Informatica developer, whenever you create a new tables, you need to prepare the database scripts in the real time. To do all these things, you need a good amount of SQL knowledge, so you can brush up the SQL skills to go through the course. So, Prashant, so we'll actually also provide SQL as a separate. That means like if the people are who comes from the different backgrounds where they don't have exposure to database and all, first we'll train them on the SQL and then we'll go with the data warehouse and Informatica Power Center. So if you're already good with this Informatica, then we'll directly, SQL, then we'll directly go with the actual concepts. So that's it I have for the presentation and different things which I have shown you. I know you might be having questions, so you can go with your questions now and I'll try to answer one by one.
Okay. Karthik, there are again few generic questions. So do you have, because I was Googling out for Informatica materials online, I was not able to I was not able to go grab even one material on Informatica. So there are no books on Informatica. So are there any materials that you guys share with us?
Yeah, we'll actually share the PPTs which helps you to understand the flow from end to end, and also we have different dimension modeling PPTs which we have already defined, and we have some advanced modeling PPTs where we have all the complete details about each transformation and everything. And we do have some materials or the soft copies. I'll also share those soft copies where you can get some more information on that. So we have soft copy materials which are distributed across the different docs. I mean, we have some Word docs, we have some PPTs and all these things. So we'll share all of them with you. And some design documents are also there, like how the design template will look like and how the Informatica migration template will look like. All those things will be there.
Excellent. And in terms of doubts, so once the course is done, let's say after 5 weeks, so can we send you an email with our doubts in the future also? Would that be acceptable or agreeable?
Yes, yes. You can always mail us your questions and I'll try to reply back whatever the way I can. And I'll also be available on my phone on even on the Skype or something. You can actually log in and you have to actually notify us prior to 1 day so that we can actually allocate the calendar for you and then we'll try to answer your questions.
Okay, perfect. And in terms of the expertise level, so being so for a person who's a beginner in terms of ETL, at the end of the 5th week, so what do you think his or her level would be?
See, what we can say, we are actually covering all the basic level to the advanced level, and you actually have to work hard also if you're actually covering 1.5 hours a day, and we expect the people to work at least more than 2 to 3 hours a day to actually grab the things for a beginner and then understand the complete things what we are doing. So at the end of the course, they can actually work in, if they work hard and then understand all the materials what we have provided, they can work in as a 4 to 5 year old developer.
Excellent. Okay, perfect.
It's provided that they have to work hard. I mean, whatever the way that we provide all the inputs, they have to work hard and then practice all the things so that they can understand end-to-end process.
Okay, so you being in working as an Informatica Informatica developer, so how do you foresee the future of Informatica? Because all these ETL tools and reporting tools, they are getting replaced. So how does Informatica update itself in terms of the competition and in the market?
Yes, so I think you might have got already some inputs about it when you compare all the other ETL tools like DataStage, Omnisio, and these things. See here, when you talk about Informatica with other competitive tools like DataStage and ODI, see the DataStage is from IBM and ODI is from Oracle. So they cannot actually concentrate only on the one tool because IBM has come up with a vast amount of products which we have it in the market now. When it comes to the Informatica is solely depend upon only on the Informatica Power Center or other type of Informatica tools. They don't have any other thing. They have only the data warehousing tool according to the industry standards, according to the industry requirements. They're updating themselves and they're coming up with new versions, new features where the industry is demanding and all those things. So when it comes to the 9 version, Informatica has come up with a really good features where you can also integrate the data from social media sites. So you can integrate the data from your Facebook, you can integrate the data from LinkedIn, you can integrate the data from other any types of web services. It is compatible with whatnot. It is compatible with all the kind of application legacy systems that you have. It is compatible with PeopleSoft. It is compatible with directly. It can extract the data from HipCore. It can extract the data from SAP mainframes, and it can even extract the data from web services directly. A web service call that you're sending, it can read the data and then give you the data output. So it has a lot of new features which they're still enhancing according to the industry needs. So a near future, what you can think of now, they have come up with a 9.5. Maybe within the 2 or 3 years, we don't see, that many kind of industry standards they have implemented in Informatica power sector. I still feel that we may not be having any trouble in the competition with the ETL tools for 3 to 4 years at least, with the kind of futures that are available. This is just my guess. It might happen, but just a guess that even 2 to 3 years you can actually think that by learning Informatica 9.5, which can help you for 2 to 3 years. Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.